I am the Chief Science Officer and co-founder of Answers Now. We are joined here today by the legendary Dr. Mary Barbera. And she's an autism mom, award-winning international speaker, a best-selling author, and a fellow BCBA. So hopefully the translation will go pretty well. I'm also the director of the Sarah Dooley Center for Autism, located here in Richmond, Virginia. So we've got a wealth of experience here, but I want to jump right in. I see folks saying hello. You can definitely say hello and ask questions over in the chat bar there. But welcome, Dr. Barbera, and congratulations on your new book. It's
right here. It's right, back of me. It's all over. But Turn Autism Around: An Action Guide for Parents of Young Children with Early Signs of Autism. So it's actually not even just for parents of kids with autism. It's for little kids who are showing signs of autism, which can also be early signs of ADHD or learning disabilities or a speech delay, or maybe the child is going to turn out to be gifted with an intense focus on something. So as a mom of two sons, they're both in their 20s. Lucas has moderate to severe autism. He's 24. And then my younger son, Spencer, is 23, and he's in medical school. So as a mom to both of, and Spencer was kind of obsessed with trains, my younger son, and I was worried, like, oh my goodness, and so I think it is a confusing time. And back in the late 1990s, when my husband first mentioned the possibility of autism, he's a physician, so he first mentioned it. I did not see it. I didn't know what to look for in a toddler. And I told him I never, ever wanted to hear the word autism again. And I shut him down and went into a very deep state of denial for 15, 18 months until I started really looking at books that showed that actually kids could make a huge improvement if they were treated very early on. And so then I felt extra guilty for kind of going into that denial. So fast forward, I just my book came out 2 days ago, and this is the book that I needed back in the late 1990s. This is the information I needed. If I would have had this information, if it wouldn't have taken me 2 decades to put this together, I think Lucas would have a better life, a different life. He would have more language. He would have, my goal is not to, cure autism or make a child be fit into a box. My goal for both my kids, for all of your children, all of your clients is 3 things. I want each child to reach their fullest potential, be as safe as possible, as independent as possible, and as happy as possible. So this is about empowering parents to detect and treat the earliest signs of autism and all these other disorders, so that basically we can remediate any speech delays, any social delays as much as possible. And for each child that may look different, each child has their personality, each child has their strengths and needs. And so this is really a mission to, it's really just great parenting advice in the book. And it has, chapters on talking, increasing talking, a chapter on reducing problem behaviors, a chapter on how to improve sleep, another one on potty training, another one on picky eating, another one on going to the doctor's, dentist, haircuts without a fuss. So throughout is really just seeing the whole child, getting the child to, their maximum potential. And that bar, my son Lucas and Spencer both have reached their fullest potential, but that's not like a stagnant kind of thing. We're always, you and I and everybody listening, we're all trying to get to the next level, to be happier, to be more independent, to learn new skills, to learn new things. So it really is a paradigm shift for me over the past 2 decades to really see things clearer.
So one of the things that well, 2 things. You are already known as writing one of the most accessible books, The Verbal Behavior Approach, your original book. most of us who are out there in the field, and I know that there's some BCBAs in the chat, and myself, when we first encounter parents, and if we don't have the, we're not starting services right away, we recommend your first book, right? Like, hey, there's no better place for you to get started. And two things I want to kind of touch on. One is this idea that parents frequently wait. They're like, okay, somebody told me something, I've called around, but nobody can get me in for 6 months or a year. And so I know you address this in the book, so if you can answer that. And the second one is, what's the development from the verbal behavior approach to turn autism around?
Yeah, so the first question was
just about waiting. Parents frequently feel like they have to wait,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, you're waiting for a variety of reasons. You're waiting because you don't know what the developmental milestones are. I was a first-time mom. I had a master's degree in nursing. I didn't know it was my job to keep track of my child's development. I thought the pediatrician would help me keep track. But the pediatrician, A, at that time, didn't know the early signs. B, the autism rate was 1 in 500. It wasn't 1 in 50 like it is today. And there was no well check between 2 and age 3 when Lucas regressed. So we were starting to have, concerns, but it didn't look that bad until he was like 2.5, so there's lack of knowledge about the signs, which I cover there's a chapter in my book called Is It Autism, ADHD, or Just a Speech Delay? And the thing is that it really doesn't matter, because even if it's any of those, you can take steps to help the child improve. If your child's not babbling, if your child's not talking, if your child's not playing, if your child's not pointing, we can teach all these skills and we can break it down. And it's a very child-friendly approach. So there's the lack of knowledge. There's a denial like I had, I almost felt like if I say, yeah, it's autism, like the curtain's going to come down and my life is over, like as I projected it, like all your expectations, all your, it's just.
What did you think it was when when your husband first said that word, like, hey, I think it could be autism? What was your sort of knowledge of that?
At 21 months, I wasn't even thinking there was anything wrong. Like, I was a first-time mom. I just had Spencer. I was overwhelmed. It was winter time. We were watching a lot of Barney. I was, the baby got sick, Lucas got sick. We were, then when your kids get sick and ear infections, you're just like, well, they're sick. So they're not saying hi anymore, or he's becoming a pickier eater. Like, I didn't know. I was overwhelmed. So when he said it, it came literally out of nowhere. I wasn't even thinking it was speech delayed at that point. And then as, we enrolled him in toddler preschool, and he did okay. It was only 2, so the expectations were kind of low. And then by 2.5, and then we also started him in speech therapy. So like when my husband mentioned it, even though I told him I never ever want to hear the word again, which is how I start my first book, the seed was planted. And there was no Facebook, there was no Google, so it was like somebody at church had a girl with severe autism, and she was like 5. And I'm like, oh, well, what did she look like when she was 2? Oh, well, and if there was anything on TV, my ears perked up, but really it was finding out about the power of applied behavior analysis in a book that gave me the permission. At that point, I still was hoping that he was just speech delayed. But once I started reading about autism, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly Lucas. Like,
was that Let Me Hear Your Voice, if I remember?
Yeah.
That was yes.
I met with somebody, a mom, because then all of a sudden I'm like, it's not autism, it's hyperlexia. I stumbled upon hyperlexia, which is like a interest in letters and numbers and reading, and before you could speak, kind of. And so I joined the Hyperlexia Association and got some local mom who had a child with Asperger's and hyperlexia, went over to her house without Lucas, and I'm like, I think it's just a speech delay. And she's just like, well, even if it's just a speech delay, you need to find out what they're doing for kids with autism because it's really groundbreaking and you really need to read this book. And on the way home, I bought the book, came home, devoured the book, and I was just like, I need the diagnosis yesterday. Like then I was in a real hurry because I knew that there was a lot I could do. And then I felt really extra guilty for that. So the other question about how is my verbal behavior approach book different than my Turn Autism Around book? So verbal behavior approach book, it was written in 2006. It was published in 2007 by a small niche publisher. And I wrote this book because Let Me Hear Your Voice and Catherine Maurice's second book had become my Bible. I had started ABA in my home 40 hours a week for Lucas, you know, full force when he was 3. But then I became a Board Certified Behavior Analyst, worked for the Pennsylvania Verbal Behavior Project, which is now called the Patent Autism Initiative. And there we were getting trained by Dr. Mark Sundberg, and we went to the Carbone Clinic 8 times for 2 days at a pop. And I was like coming back and I'm like, okay, I learned these 3 things. I'm going to try it out on Lucas, try it out on all the kids in the schools that I was consulting with. And so I was a couple years into it. I was also, because I'm a registered nurse, I was also very interested in the first signs of autism, training pediatricians. I was involved with a large Pennsylvania statewide grant on teaching pediatricians what to do. I got trained in the ADOS and then in the STAT, the screening tool for autism in toddlers. I flew down to Nashville with Wendy Stone, and I had to make some videos of kids with delays, typical kids, send them down. And in that process of helping kids, you know, I'd screen them and then I'd be like, okay, do this, break a cookie in 10 pieces, you know, like this is the way you teach imitation, and send them on their way. And through all that is like, you know, 1 or 2 really gung-ho moms are like, boom, like, all right, tell me exactly what to do. It's like, I don't have 40 hours to tell you what to do. Like, you know, it's all in my head now. And there was one mom in particular who, she was a nurse, and she was all about like, tell me what to do. And I was like, tell me what books to get. And I'm like, well, Let Me Hear Her Voice was really great for me, but I would not do half of the procedures in that book. Like I would not. I have a very child-friendly, no cry approach. I mean, kids might cry, but we don't want to make them cry, and we're not going to use any escape extinction. I mean, we are really, really child-friendly. So it worried me to be giving Let Me Hear Your Voice out as a book. It worried me to be giving Potty Training in a Day, which was written in the 70s with punishment procedures. That's not how I do things. That's not how I did things in the Verbal Behavior Project, and it certainly isn't how I do things now. And so in the end, it was we did a local article in our paper, and one of the journalists there, Tracy Rasmussen, did the article. It was a full, you know, featured article, and she said, if you ever want to write a book, I'll help you. And so I called her up, and I basically said, like, I need to tell people what to do because I don't have time. This mom that was super gung-ho, that was a nurse, I said, I can't help you and I can't really give you a book, but if you go, we're doing a big 100, 200 people event, Verbal Behavior Project for teachers mostly. But, you know, I'll get you a spot in the beginner. And I was doing the advanced verbal behavior for the returning classrooms, but somebody else was doing the presentation for the beginner. And then I lost touch with her, and I had to actually redo the stat because I got, finally after 4 months, I got the screening thing back, and they said, you have to redo your stat video for us because you had happy birthday on the balloon instead of making a plain balloon. I'm like, are you kidding? And this is like VHS tapes. I mean, it was just like, are you kidding me? So I called up this nurse and I said, you know, how is your son doing? You know, it's been 4 months, and I had sent her to that beginner training, but I was in the other room doing the advanced group. And she goes, oh my God, he's doing so much better. Like, I came home from that training and he was talking in 2 days, and I put things, high up on shelves, and so I redid the stat just by chance 4 months later, because I had to get plain balloons in there. And she was just like, that was amazing. And he basically, I don't know if you're familiar with the stat, but it's like a 4.0 is the worst score, and then over 2 is indicates autism, but it's a screening tool. It's not a diagnostic. Yes, and I can't diagnose one way or the other. But he had scored, a 4 or 3.75 or something. And then 4 months later, after she went to that workshop and started intervening, he was under the 2.0. He was like a 1 or a 1.75 or something. And I could see, like, I have to get this in a book. But I had no idea that this book was going to be anything. I mean, I just got very lucky and convinced Dr. Mark Sundberg to write the foreword. I got an endorsement from Dr. Jack Michael, Dr. John Cooper, as well as parents, speech therapists. It's in over a dozen languages. I've traveled the world. And it's used for graduate level ABA coursework, but it can be read
Absolutely.
by a parent. So that's always been my stick, is like, I'm a parent and a professional. So people would like bring me to Virginia and they'd be like, well, can you talk to the parents in the morning and the professionals in the afternoon? I'm like, no. I'm talking to everybody together. It's not going to be up here. I'm going to tell the same thing. So you're going to get more bang for your buck if I put everybody together, right? And so that's always been my thing. And when I fell into the world of online marketing, because then once I got my PhD in 2011, people are like, okay, now what are you going to do with your PhD? Are you going to teach? And I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to get my message out online, because I can't go to Australia 3 times and speak to 300 people or 80 people. Like, it's just not efficient. And I can't go door to door. I left the Verbal Behavior Project in 2010 and started going door to door with birth to 3-year-olds. And I was making all kind of progress, but like one at a time, like that's, and I knew I had now a 4-step simple procedure. And so I got online through a mentor, Jeff Walker, who wrote a book called Launch. And I have just been like a dog with a bone. Basically, I am now a full-time online marketer. I have full-time employees. I have contractors. I am constantly learning, like, how to do a webinar. I took an online course. How to set up a video studio in my house. Took an online course. How to do a podcast. Took an online course. Like, I am just like, boom, we gotta figure this out. And so I really was very happy with my online courses. We're selling courses every day to parents and professionals from over 80 countries. I give professional behavior analysts 32 learning CEUs. They used to be called type 2. So I was just like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then it was actually my online mentor, Jeff Walker, who really persuaded me to write another book. So this book is going back down the mountain and getting the parents who are not even necessarily searching autism, or they're searching it, but they're not talking about it. They're worried, they're waiting. The wait list, like you said, are for services, for evaluations are 9 months to 2 years. And now the pandemic hits, everybody gets their appointments canceled, or now we're going to do a Zoom evaluation. And now you're not even taking your young children to the library story time, or to the grocery store, or to daycares or preschools. Everybody's wearing masks. It's just, how many more people are missing the signs now?
So to that point, I know that a lot of parents will, when they first get exposed to kind of ABA, they see that 30, 40 hours and they're like, I can't do that, right? And one of the reasons that Answers Now was born is we want to move parents back into the middle of the equation. Like you said, we know how to do this stuff. This has been around for decades, but if there's anything that we've done aside from, hey, we've gotten better and better at the delivering, but parents have gotten more and more pushed out of kind of the central part. It's a very expert driven kind of deal. So what do you say to parents who are like, oh, I can't do 30 or 40 hours? I saw you mention in your book, like 10 to 15 minutes can make a huge difference. And can you speak to that a little bit? Like what that sort of looks like from a parent and how you could do that during your day with your other kids and your job and everything else?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, I know you had kind of coined this as 5 things I learned over the past 2 decades. So, I mean, I did try to jot down a few things, just on a little sticky, but, you know, one of the things I've learned over the past 2 decades is your child will make the most progress if you as the parent has become your child's best teacher and advocate as soon as possible. This, you know, sending them to a 40-hour-a-week center or 20-hour-a-week center, you know, with you not involved, I don't think, you know, is wise, especially when we're talking about very little kids without even a diagnosis. Maybe they're on a wait list. Maybe it is just a speech delay. Maybe it is going to turn out to be a learning disability. So I think we're getting to the parents and empowering them too late. So I want to empower them early to, you know, everybody's like, well, not everybody, but some people say, I just want to be a parent. I just want to have fun family time. It's like, even being a parent of a typically developing 2-year-old who is developing on track, he wasn't a preemie, there's no, you know, ear infections in the way that are causing more, you know, sleep issues. And even just if you have like a perfectly healthy, never had a sickness 2-year-old, your role as a parent is to teach them. They are going to need to be taught. Maybe they're not going to need to be taught imitation, pointing, and speech, but they're going to need to be taught how to use utensils, how to tie their shoes eventually. You know, like there are things that you teach as a parent, even if your child is not delayed. And so that's how I address it. And really 15 minutes is where we start. We don't even start with 15 minutes. Like for 2-year-olds or 1-year-olds, first we have to make it fun. We have to make it child friendly. We have to show the parents that throughout the day, if you're going to go outside and play on the swing, which your child really likes, instead of saying, okay, Johnny, let's go outside. Look, we're going to play on the swing and da-da-da. You know, think of it as a foreign language. If I was saying, la, 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 you wouldn't even understand what I was saying. But if you stand by the door and you say, open, 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 and then you say, swing, 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 you know, that's the 1 word times 3 strategy. Just a simple thing that you can do throughout the day. And then we start doing that kind of stuff. Plus, we have to teach the parents how to do a quick assessment to see where their child's strengths and needs are. Because we can't. Can you? I don't mean it. Yeah. Because there's a framework for this, and I want to give you the opportunity, kind of through your 4 steps, right? Yes. So and I know that assessment is number 1. So if you could kind of speak to it through that kind of lens. So there's 4 kind of pieces to this. All throughout my new book, it's called Turn Autism Around. We have assessment form, we have behavior form, we have a planning form. So the 4 steps for parents or professionals, when you're looking at a child, or if you're a teacher and you're looking at 6 or 8 kids, we need to do an assessment, which I have a 1-page assessment that I've developed over the past 2 decades that's clearer and clearer, but simple. It takes about 10 minutes to complete. And we can't just rely on things like the BB-MAP or the PEAK assessment, because that stuff is mostly just language and maybe a little bit of social. We need to know, especially with these toddlers, are they addicted to a pacifier or a bottle? Are they using utensils? Are they drinking out of a straw or an open cup? We need to know, are they walking? Are they allergic to latex or those sorts of things? Or do they have a diagnosis? How are they sleeping? Are they sleeping in a crib or in a bed? Are they waking up throughout the night? Are they having difficulty falling asleep? There's so many things that little kids are doing that are not anywhere in the BB-MAP or the PEAK assessment or that sort of thing. And really, eating problems and talking problems really go hand in hand with these really little kids. So assessment is number one. Then we use that one-page assessment form, and we move on to planning, another one-page assessment in my book. And you can get all the free resources that are in my book, including reading chapter 1, listening to chapter 2 on Audible. You can get that at turnautismaround.com. You don't even have to buy the book. You could just go on there, download that freebie, and you could see all the different things that are in the book. So assessment is step 1, planning is step 2. And in terms of planning, we also need to gather materials like a shoebox with a slit into it, pictures of family members, potato head, inset puzzles, like really easy things that you can do. So assessment, planning. The third step is teaching or intervening, which is a whole lot of stuff in the book, and there's probably 1,000 strategies and 1,000 things you can do. So that's hard to really boil down, but when you're teaching, you're always spending 95% of your time preventing problem behaviors. You're always giving 8 positives to every negative. You're always focusing on the child, having the child want to be with you, whether that's at the table or the child wanting to get dressed, child wanting to brush their teeth, child wanting to get a bath, because those are the kind of things that parents don't get a lot of training on. Okay, all of a sudden your child doesn't want to get into the bathtub. What are you supposed to do? Like, who are you supposed to ask? And I think because of my nursing background and my mom background, I was able to tackle some of these potty training, bathing, those are kind of in my nurse role in the past, and I was able to really develop procedures to help people. And then the fourth and final step of the Turn Autism Around approach is using easy data to make database decisions. And it's not like reams of data or every 5 minutes you got to circle something. It is as simple. One of the really simple techniques is my calendar system, which is really just to get a physical calendar. It doesn't need to be this big. And in the calendar, you're going to keep track of things that are important to your child or your family, like medical things, whether they had a doctor appointment, if they're having sleep problems, how much they slept, what their naps were like. You can record all this in your calendar. For my calendar, for my son, we still use for allergy shots, complaints of headache, self-injurious behavior go in this, and we've managed to get those down to near 0 levels because we've worked with his doctor, his psychiatrist, his allergist to make sure that we were making sense of it. So the 4 steps: assessment, planning, intervening, and evaluation. It's basically the scientific method for all things.
We've got a question. We're going to get to it in a second.
Okay.
I also wanted to, one of the nice ways that you kind of phrase this, you talk about the captain's seat. And I think, like you spoke earlier about parents kind of saying like, well, I don't necessarily want to do this kind of part of it. And the answer is sort of the same, like you kind of have to do some of it, right? Like that's just part of parenting, whether your child has a specific disability category or is typically developing. We call it at Answers Now, the sort of the framework we use for parents is you're the CEO. So there's lots of different elements to your company. It's not just, hey, he's not talking. There's, like you said, there's the medical, the dietary, all of the other things. One of the things I want to make
the captain of the taking the captain seat or the captain of the ship is and that's what really we do. And whether you're a behavior analyst or speech therapist, or you're the parent or a grandparent here listening, we want to empower at least one parent to really say, okay, I am going to be the captain of the ship here. I'm going to learn how to do it myself so that if Susie calls out, or if there's a big snowstorm or COVID hits and we're locked down for 4 months, I'm going to know what to do. I'm going to know how to teach at the table. I'm going to know how to pair the word when we go outside on the swing. I'm going to know how to do interverbal fill-ins. I'm going to know how to repair the bathtub if that gets unpaired. And so that is my model, kind of like the CEO, same thing.
So I want to one of the big things that comes up all the time, and you've got a whole chapter on, is tantrums. And if I was thinking about this as you were talking about, also just like a typically developing kid has a set of behaviors that sort of draw you in, right? Like they smile, they giggle, and so most parents don't have to think about it. You just smile, giggle back and talk, and you guys end up kind of talking. Can you speak a little bit to tantrums and how much attention can play a role in, because I think parents really struggle with that, because of course they don't want it. It scares them and a lot of the behaviors, but can you speak a little to that and how you talk about that in the book, how to sort of, because it's almost retraining parents, right? Like you have to react differently so that you can get those tantrums to not be as, frankly, traumatizing as they are for a lot of parents.
Yeah. So we just really need to spend 95% of our time preventing problem behaviors, because once a child has a tantrum, it is no longer a win-win situation. And reacting is, basically you want to keep the child safe and you want to keep his dignity. So if you have a child, that's 2 or 10 or whatever, that's throwing themselves on the macadam in a parking lot, like that is not, nobody's going to win there. We got to get the child to safety. Even if we have to, which I'm against bribing and everything and reinforcing, but you know what? Safety first. And people are like, oh, well, I was just in Walmart and, I kept the demand on. It's like, no, stigmatizing to the child and to the family. And, you got to be the Monday morning quarterback and plan your trip better next time, Oh,
absolutely. And I love how synergistic this is, because the answer is now that's what we do. We're our whole thing is reduce the barrier of entry to this information for parents. We do it through much more sort of direct stuff, but it's the same idea, is that how do we get parents involved and stand them up? I do want to go to the question here, because I love that we get questions. I don't know if you've seen it. It's as far as prognosis, and I'm going to skip a little bit. It's is it true, or do you believe that some children, despite the early diagnosis and good programming, and they go through a little of that, that's still children that remain on the moderate severe end of the spectrum? They have progress and function at a certain level, but they remain in a condition where they will need one-on-one support. What's your answer to that? Because it's I know I get this question quite a bit, and it's I think what they're trying to say is, how come some kids respond better than other kids? Like some kids really do, autism gets fully turned around, right? Like you might not even know that they had an early diagnosis, and other kids still require 50 to 100% support.
Yeah. And my son Lucas is 24, moderate severe autism, mild intellectual disability, needs somebody with him. I can't even go to the grocery store for 15 minutes and leave him alone. He can't go outside by himself. So I get it. I live it. It's my life. And I have to be a good advocate. I have to be a good manager of his services. I have to still keep my calendar data and work on his medical issues, which have creeped up over the years, because now, they get tall, they get big, aggression, self-injurious behavior, like that's not good at any age, but over 200 pounds. So we've been fortunate to really manage to help Lucas be as safe as possible, as independent as possible, as happy as possible. And, I could and actually my phone is like ringing off the hook, and I'm like, okay, who's calling me? You know what I mean? Like, is something wrong? At any moment I could get a call that's not good about Lucas or about anybody, really. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you have no control over anything in the future. So like you worrying like, oh, what's going to happen when I die and all that, like I can't control that. All I can do is really, my husband keeps calling me, which is making me nervous because he's on his way to pick up my son. But so, some kids do really well. I mean, without ABA and without me becoming a behavior analyst, I can't even imagine the situation Lucas would be in right now. But he is it is what it is. He's very impaired and he's going to need supervision for life. Now, I do say that if I would have had all the information in this book when my husband first mentioned at 21 months, which would have been an impossible to have this information because it took me 2 decades to acquire all this information and to put it in a very as simplified method as possible. So if I would have, for to have this information, and I've seen this with little kids in my online courses and in my work, is that they really can turn around. I have some clients that are driving and going to college, and the spectrum of autism is very wide. But some kids, depending on their neurologic, some kids have genetic problems, some kids have autism plus they get brain cancer, or plus they have diabetes, and we can't control what the eventual outcome is going to be. We can only say, let's dive in as much as possible. Let's help each child reach his or her fullest potential, and let's keeping the bar high so that we can help everybody, continue to improve.
Well, I will say you've been remarkably generous with your time. I know that whenever I'm talking to anybody, I try to reduce their anxiety. And I know if your phone's kind of jumping, we'll let you.
Well, I know he knows I was coming live, so that's what's making me really nervous.
Right?
I probably should go and at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Let's we can wrap it up. I've got a couple things to do, but let people know how to get a hold of your book and where they can get more information about you. Definitely turnautismaround.com.
Well,
but there's also.
I gave you one because I do want to commit to giving me 5 things I learned.
All right,
so,
I appreciate that.
So I'll do that, and then it's turnautismaround.com is where you can get all the information about the book, that free download for just giving me your name and email address. Go buy the book. It's available hardcover, Audible, and Kindle. So lots of good ways to get it. So I already gave you one. I do believe that a parent can make a difference, and that the child will progress better with at least one parent going all in and becoming the best teacher and advocate and manager of the care and manager of the goals and what you're working on. And, I went into one classroom one time, they're working on teaching the 6-year-old the rind of a watermelon as a feature. I'm like, stop it. This kid doesn't even know what, he doesn't even eat watermelon. A typical 6-year-old doesn't know that. So really think about what you're teaching your child, what other professionals want to work on, because the parent is the most motivated to make the difference. So that's one thing I learned. The second thing, there's no need to wait for a diagnosis to start intervening. That's the whole purpose of my book. ABA is a science. So when people say, I hate ABA, I don't believe in ABA, ABA is happening. It's like saying you don't believe in gravity. But ABA is also a treatment package for children with autism. And those flavors of ABAs, those types of ABAs can look very different. And I don't like some of the ABA that I see or hear about too. So when people say they don't like ABA, they have not seen it done well, because my form of ABA, the Turn Autism Around approach and the verbal behavior approach, is child-friendly, family-centered, helping each child reach their fullest potential. There's nothing in here that just common sense wouldn't be a good idea, as far as I'm concerned. What else? We want to focus on requesting and having the child requesting as much as possible. Give the child choices. Choices also breed a lot of happiness. And I think that's 4. So, and the 5th thing is really, I do believe that if I would have had the information that Lucas would have a different life, I would have a different life. I mean, my life is good. My life is great. And autism doesn't have to ruin your life. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Your child only has one life, so do you, so do your the siblings of your child. So try to be positive, try to take time for self-care, and really embrace your role, embrace being able to learn how to best help your child. So turnautismaround.com is where you get all the information.
again, cannot thank you enough for your time. And I just want to say, I want to echo some of the comments here, but as someone who's been profoundly influenced by you as guiding my professional practice and my the way that I go about delivering ABA, because you're right, like I'm a science guy, but I don't like everything that science comes up with. It's the same thing, but just thank you for all that you do. For those of us, I wear my kind of professional BCBA hat. You are an absolute beacon for ABA, for parents. And it's just, you are that person for tons and tons of people, that first connection to there is hope for us. It's just, I just want to thank you. I'm looking forward to having you back. We can talk about other things. I wish you the best with your book. Hopefully the news with your husband is, do you want me to pick up bacon or do you want me to pick up like something very basic?
Oh boy. All right. Well, thank you so much, Adam. I hope we get to see each other in person again soon. And also behavior analysts, like I have a verbal behavior bundle online course, which is really life-changing, even if you are a seasoned behavior analyst or a novice or a parent. I mean, we go really deep, and I've had people, behavior analysts who have been behavior analysts for 20 years who say, I am forever changed as a behavior analyst by taking your courses. So after you read the book, the next step is my courses, because that's really when we can dive in deep. I show you videos and really embrace helping implement the right programs, right targets in the right order, because a lot of us are kind of needing some advice on that.
Well, and we'll definitely have you back. We can talk a little bit more answers now, a little bit more about your book. Hey, everybody, we're going to let Dr. Barbera go now. Definitely earned honorific. I've got a little announcement afterwards, but thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Figure out how to leave.
Whoop. There we go. Well, that was fantastic. That couldn't have gone any better. I did have a quick announcement at Answers Now for this month. We're having a giveaway. That would be a cool thing to give away is a getaway. We're giving away a trip to France. No. We are, once again, thanks to Dr. Barbera for sharing her extremely valuable time with us. Go to getanswersnow.com/giveaway. We've got a whole package that we're giving away. For our focus this month, we're going to be focusing on social stories, social narratives. It's an extraordinarily powerful tool for parents, just simple pictures that can help you navigate through your day, reduce your child's anxiety, reduce your anxiety. If you've got a social story that works great for you, share that with us. If you share a social story with us, you will be eligible for 5 different chances to win the giveaway. So we're giving away a Kindle, Mary Barbera's book, a whole bunch of stuff. It's over $400 worth of stuff that we're giving away. Actually, Marianne, if you want to shoot me the link, I'll open that kind of back up. I inadvertently closed it. My apologies for that. I want to thank everybody who joined the chat today. Feel free to shoot us a note. Who do you want to listen to? Who would you like us to have on? What are topics that you want us to cover here? It's a really exciting time for Answers Now. We're growing, we're expanding out to other states, and it's really simple to think about. Like, do you want someone who's got Mary Barbera's skill set to be working with you and be working with your child? That's exactly what Answers Now does. Is it pairs you exactly with BCBA so that you can learn about all the stuff and turn autism around. You can learn how to do this stuff at home. You can learn how to advocate for your child. I know that some of the folks here in the little chat on the side are BCBAs. So it's nice seeing Lisa in here, and I see my co-founder Jeff Beck over there. All right, how do I share this screen? I think I can. Almost there. Anyway, so there we go. The giveaway's over on the side. If I try to do it at this point, it'll mess it up. I want to thank Marianne, who is the wizard behind the scenes, making this all come together. You're fantastic and an absolute asset to us. Thanks for everybody taking some time out of your day. Looking forward to hearing from you. And yep, shared the link. Getanswersnow.com/giveaway if you want to try to win the Kindle and Mary's book and a variety of other things. And just want to thank everybody for coming in. So definitely check us out at getanswersnow.com. Feel free to ping us any questions, and thanks for all that you do. And again, thanks to Dr. Barbera. And we will look forward to the next time. And happy April Fool's Day and Autism Awareness Month. I'm Adam Dreyfus, Chief Science Officer and co-founder of Answers Now, and appreciate your time.